Hi. So this is the second library devlog, SVG LibDevLog. I have added quite a few things since the last time. So I was able to fix the problem I had previously with the Vita store append. So now it appends correctly, as it should. And I have added quite a few function implementations. So I have implemented, I've added pre-allocate, so we can pre-allocate a certain buffer before we actually render something to the screen. I've added this so the user can avoid allocations during the rendering part. And so I've implemented the render line as well. Before I actually render something to the surface, SVG surface, I check for the invalid input at first, so canvas shouldn't be null, the surface shouldn't be null. And then I've also added one function which is SNL canvas SNL can't continue, so it tells me if the SVG it checks for the SVG rendering errors, and that will come in handy later on. So if we go down here to the render polygon, so I have render polygon begin, point, and end, and the same with the polyline begin, point, and end. And so the user may forget one of the operations, so he may do a begin and then a point and then forget to do a polygon end and call a different function. That is why I have SNL can continue. So it will tell the user that he forgot to do some operation before actually moving on and rendering something else. So if he does begin, point, and then tries to render a rectangle, for example, it will actually fail and tell him that he forgot an operation before he can actually continue rendering something else. So far I've added render line, circle, ellipse, rectangle, and polygon, polyline shapes. And now they work perfectly as they should. So let me make it and run it. And if we take a look here, so it renders every shape as it should. Now, for example, if I render a polygon, I do begin, point, and then I forget to add polygon end. Let's try to run it and see what happens. It fails, so enforce failure, and it actually tells me what's wrong. So did you forget to call SNL render end function after begin? So I've called begin, but I forgot to call the end function before doing something else. And the same happens with begin. So if I forget to call begin and start calling the point, it fails again, and it tells me that you need to call SNL render polygon start before using the polygon point. And the same happens with polygon begin. Polyline, the same happens with the polyline function. So it gets better and better. And now I will continue implementing the rest of the shapes. So let's move on down here and implement the curve function. So I have a curve function and I have a curve too. So curve to renders a curve to canvas with a custom curvature, and this one with equal curvature. Okay, so let's implement this. The first thing I will do is I will just copy these things, not this one, but from the rectangle. I will copy this and I'll paste it here. So, did you forget? Now we can move on to the rendering part. And F. And the first one is the canvas surface. Then we have a format, and then go the arguments. So start. And I will just copy this. Now this is the formula I have come up with by experimenting with the SVG curve shape. You can just, open and type SVG tutorial and use the W3 schools tutorial. Then we choose any of the shapes. So let's go with the circle, and then you can press on try it yourself and experiment with the SVG arguments. I will close this. So curve height and curvature. And then we also need to update the SNL point endpoint, since the function accepts the coordinates of the endpoint, but the SVG argument needs the delta, so it needs the difference instead. That is why we need to update it. So now point, and that will be and x minus start x and y minus start y, like this. SVG curve looks like this. So it's actually a path, a curved path. So okay, so I need to update the code here as well. So its point is int32, so I need to update the formatting to D here. Anyway, so it's %d for the start.x, then %d for the start.y, then curve q, and then goes the %d for the curve height, then for the curvature, and x and y, and then goes the stroke. Okay, so I will just copy it from rectangle, so like this. So we have stroke color, fill color, then we have a fill opacity, and the stroke opacity as well. What about the stroke width? And so we need stroke width as well. Stroke color, so we need a stroke width. And stroke width is an unsigned value, I believe. Let's check it from here. Yes, it's an unsigned value. All right, let's write the arguments. So like this. Great, now let's go to the curve 2. and I will just paste it here. So this is a curvature with this is a curve with a custom curvature. So since this is a custom curvature, curve height and curve and the curvature, we don't need to calculate for these two since they come as arguments, but we still need to calculate the delta end. So curve height, curvature, delta end, and it's all the same. Okay, let's test it then. So let me first build it. Make clean and let's add a few curves. Snail canvas, render, curve, canvas, and then what comes next? So canvas. So it picks up the signature function signature, but it doesn't autocomplete. Strange. Anyways, canvas and SNL point. Let's make it 80. Oh no, that's x10, y80, and then the end point, SNL point. Let it be 64 by 80. And then the last thing is appearance, SNL appearance. Let me just copy this. Brown. Okay. Make run. So it must be an equal curve, so it must go like this, but it is skewed to the right. Something doesn't work as it should, so let's check the code. Render curve. So the second curve works, but the first one doesn't. Oh, okay, so I found the mistake. The delta end variable should be declared here, and then we need to use the delta end variable instead. So like this. And then this will produce an equal curve. Alright, so let's return to the curves. Okay, so it still produces the wrong result. Oh, did I forget to build it? I probably forgot to build it, so make run. Yeah, I forgot to build the library, so it works correctly now. Now let's try a few more, add a few more curves. So green one and color fill. blue. So let's try this one. Okay, that works. Like this. So this is it for today. See you next time.